There was a story that ran on May 17th in which it was reported that Democratic Representative Paul Locke of Durham opposes eliminating the state's current tiered income structure, which levies higher taxes on the more wealthy. There's a direct quote. Those couples who have more than $100,000 taxable income really ought to pay more than a family making $30,000, he said. Flattening the income tax is not fair to the majority of North Carolinians. Well, first of all, I'm going to dissect that statement in a couple of ways. Notice, and you don't see it up there, well, actually I did write it in there. I was being prescient. When he talked about the people making $100,000, those were couples. You know, it was just a couple people there, but the people making $30,000, that was a family. So we're talking about, you know, the rich couples and the poor families. And those couples, they ought to be paying more than those families. He also says they ought to pay more. And I think any of us thinking of this, someone making $100,000, someone making $30,000, talk about their tax burden. Okay, yeah, people with $100,000 ought to pay more. What Representative Locke doesn't tell you is that under a flat tax, they would pay more. They're paying the same rate, so they're paying, if you're making 3.5 or 3 1/3 times as much, you're paying 3 1/3 times as much because the rate is the same. They are paying more. But wait, $100,000, if you applied the 5.9% tax rate that was talked about in the House tax reform plan, we could have done the 4.5% rate that will eventually be the Senate plan. I just picked one. $100,000 income, 5.9% tax rate. Once again, very simplistic. No deductions taken out at this point. $5,900 tax versus 5.9% rate at $30,000. $1,770 in tax. 3 1/3 times as much. I got to it early, but now. But wait, there's more. This Ginsu not only slices and dices, it'll chop through the steel can and still be good as new. But that doesn't even include the things I just mentioned, any of the other things that would help people at the lower end of the scale. Standard deduction, child tax credits, a 0 tax bracket. All of those things, you add them into the mix, and that makes it better for those who are at the lower end of the income scale. And in fact, quoting again from that May 17th N&O story, certain things have changed since then, because this was an earlier iteration of that House plan, but it says the legislation would double the current standard deduction, making it the largest in the Southeast, David Lewis said. Married couples filing jointly could claim a $12,000 deduction, while a head of household could qualify for $9,600, and a single taxpayer could get $6,000. The state's $100 per child tax credit also would increase to $250 for most taxpayers and $125 for higher earners. So that's another way in which some progressivity is being built into this.